Just gotta wait for some people to join. Also gotta turn on my Facebook. Alright. All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Football Forecast, episode number 13. So we're back. It is October 15th, 2019, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We're back for another episode of the Football Forecast. A lot of stuff happened in the football world this week. I mean, just in general. I think mainly, though, last week we talked about the matchups coming up this weekend in college football. And we saw those matchups last weekend, and I think now, we're ready to kind of voice our opinions on them, voice our opinions of what we saw, and just talk about, break down what we saw. I think the biggest thing that we were all excited for on last Tuesday when we were doing the podcast is the LSU and Florida game. That's really the only thing anybody could talk about. And, rightfully so. Florida just came out from beating Auburn, really, hot, on fire Auburn team, and they had to go right into Death Valley, march in there on a Saturday night and try to beat up LSU. And it was going to be a hot match, and they went in there and they played the game, and we can successfully say that the outcome was what we expected. LSU came on top by about two scores, exactly two scores. It was 42-28, LSU. And, I think that's what we kind of expected. I think if you were to pick a perfect score for this game, I think if you were to ask, probably 100 people a multiple choice, and this was one of the choices, 42-28, I think most people would have picked 42-28. That just sounds right. It sounds like LSU would have scored more. It sounds like Florida could come in there and put some points on. I did have to say, though, and I will get into this later, Florida did extremely well on offense in Death Valley. I mean, that was, for a quarterback like Kyle Trask that has been there for so long and hasn't been able to start, hasn't gotten that snap, especially on a Saturday night in Death Valley, they did really well on offense. I would say, they did almost as good as LSU, if not better, to get that win. It's just their red zone efficiency that kind of slowed them down a little bit. Florida, kind of came into this game, on hot, just on straight fire. Kyle Trask was 23 out of 39 for 310 yards. Definitely played his best football late in the second quarter. 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Michael Perron was able to get 17 carries for 65 yards, so that was really good out of him. We were able to see some rushing out of him. They couldn't really get the running game going too much, but that's what we did see out of him. But really, the whole highlight of the game came from Kyle Trask. I think on both sides, if you took a highlight from the whole game, one player that really showed out, even though they lost, Kyle Trask really put that team on his back for that game and just went, ham. I mean, he did everything he could to try to get that win, and he did a great job for somebody that hasn't, started.
Yeah, he did pretty well. Didn't really make any mistakes except for the interception in the end zone late in the game. Other than that, he played well. He didn't make any other mistakes, didn't do anything that that cost the team. Other than that one mistake, if you look at the stats, really what it really came down to is both teams did well offensively, but LSU was the more efficient team. If you look at Trask, he completed 24 out of 44 passes, which is not a great percentage. That's probably somewhere around 55% or close to it. And in contrast, Joe Burrow was 21 out of 24. So it was much more efficient. And also LSU averaged about 12 yards per completion, 293 total yards passing. Florida had a little bit more yards passing, but only about 7 yards per attempt, so not as efficient. Florida ran a lot more plays in the game than LSU did, but LSU was just more of an efficient team. Look at running the football. A little bit bigger of a difference. Rushing yards, 218 for LSU, 146 for Florida. LSU averaged 9 yards a carry, which is exceptional. There aren't going to be very many games that team is going to do that well running the football when they're playing a quality opponent. But yeah, I think that was essentially the difference of the game. I think both teams play well on offense. Not necessarily that your team didn't play well on defense. I think it's just more of a case of both teams doing well offensively. But LSU, looking at it, was just a more efficient team. I think essentially that ended up being the difference in the game.
Yeah, I would say the exact same thing, and just because that's really the theme of it. And when you think about it, if you watch the game back, it really is the theme. I think we all knew Dan Mullen was going to have to create some plays and draw some things up in the playbook, to win at Death Valley. That's what you have to do when you don't have a team that's better than the team that you're playing in Death Valley. You have to make some plays. You have to make some big calls, and that's what he did. Especially on an end around with Kyle Trask flipping it out to LaMichael Perron. On a big end around, getting around two defensive ends and a linebacker. That was a big play, and you could tell Dan Mullen prepped for that. He was ready for that. Ran it up the sideline. I'm not sure. I don't think he scored, but he definitely did get a first down. Like I said, you have to game plan for that kind of stuff. And they did that. Florida did that very well. It's something I took note of for the first half, and maybe even for the third quarter. But you could see they were spread way too thin, especially late in the third quarter. You could see that whatever Dan Mullen drew up, he didn't draw up enough of it. Early or middle of the fourth quarter, you kind of saw a botched play that was kind of the same thing that they ran to the left side, the end around. They ran the same thing to the right side, and it was botched completely. Kyle Trask really had nowhere to go. I think improvisation-wise, Kyle Trask probably could have made a lot more plays if he wasn't as big. But he did try to make some plays, and he did make some plays. He's 240 pounds, I believe, and he made some huge plays on his feet trying to get in for a QB sneak, and he was getting first downs by hitting linebackers, just spearing them in the chest. He was doing it. He was doing everything he could to get that win. But when it comes down to it, he can't improvise enough like a Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray type of quarterback, which obviously is not on him, but it's on really the offensive play calling. There wasn't enough to beat LSU in Death Valley. There was just a couple of trick plays here and there, and a couple things that we can beat them with, and then Dan Mullen pretty much said, beat them with this, we can beat them with this. But for the rest of it, it's just on you guys, and you really can't go into Death Valley with that kind of mindset. I think Dan Mullen should have drew up way more plays than he did. Like I said, he was kind of spread too thin. The amount of plays that they had just weren't working. They kind of relied on some inefficient plays.
In Florida, just offensively just doesn't have as much to work with. They don't have as many weapons as LSU does. I think it's a tribute to show that LSU was clearly the better football team. It's not a game where Florida played poorly. It wasn't a game where Florida made a lot of mistakes and kind of gave LSU the game. That's not the case at all. I think LSU was just a better football team. And one glaring thing here that I noticed is, LSU scored 42 points. LSU only ran 48 plays from scrimmage. That's really, really low number. I think for an average, a team is probably going to run somewhere in the mid-60s number of plays per game on average, maybe 70. They ran 48 plays and they scored 42 points.
Yeah.
Florida, on the other hand, scored 28 points, but they had to run 84 plays to do that. I mean, they came kind of close to almost doubling LSU number of plays ran, and LSU still won the game by 2 touchdowns.
And that's what we came in and said on Tuesday. LSU's offense is almost unstoppable. I mean, if Florida couldn't do it, and they beat the red-hot Auburn team, I mean, there's almost nobody in this country that can beat LSU, really. There's only a couple teams I can think of right now that has the defense to stop them in a certain territory. Like you said, that amount of plays from scrimmage with 511 total yards, that's absolutely insane with 42 points. You have that many touchdowns on the board. That's just not something you see every day. That's not a typical LSU offense. We all know they're going with this spread, this new offense, and it's working. They're going to outscore guys. They have almost as good as offense as Alabama or Oklahoma or Ohio State. They're literally right neck and neck with an Alabama type of offense right now.
Right.
So it makes you wonder who's going to stop LSU. Is it going to be Alabama coming in there and getting that W? LSU has to go to Bryant-Denny, so. That maybe that could be a game where LSU could slip up on offense and give it to Alabama.
Well, who knows? But since you brought that up, right now, the way those two teams are playing, LSU and Alabama, they're kind of mirror images of one another. They're both doing very well on offense, very efficient, score a lot of points. But the weakness for both those teams right now is defense. Mm-hmm. And the one big weakness that both those teams have right now is the inability to for the defense to get off the field. Alabama has had that problem stopping teams on third down. Teams have consistently ran more plays against Alabama than Alabama has run. Not only this year, but last year as well. It's a recurring theme.
That kills the defense over time.
It just wears your defense down, particularly if you have a defense or you don't have a ton of depth, which is the case with Alabama. That really hurts. And you look at this game with LSU's defense against Florida. Like I said, Florida ran 36 more plays than LSU did. They also were 9 out of 17 on third down. So LSU, again, had a problem getting Florida off the field on third down.
Yeah, I mean, it like you said, it really does now. When I see that, I didn't really think of it before, but when you say that, it does look like a mirror image of Alabama this year. LSU and Alabama look like the exact same team. A quarterback that can do it all, wide receivers all across the board that are, just absolute superstars in college football. I think LSU probably has a little bit more of a run game, but that's based on the defenses that they've played. It is pretty crazy to when we're going to see these two teams face off, and I didn't think going into the season, I don't think anybody thought that would be a huge game this year or one of the best games, but after we saw this game, the way that LSU beat Florida, I think Alabama and LSU is going to be the highlight of the season. As for Florida, they have a lot to take away even with the loss, so.
Well, you look at that, and that's their only loss. In Florida, they're just still as much in the college football playoff conversation as anybody. They're still sitting at 6-1 right now. They're 3-1. They're basically one out of 3 teams in the SEC East that still controls its own destiny. You got Missouri actually right now, believe it or not, is actually in first place in the East. They got a 2-0 record in the conference. And then you got Georgia and Florida sitting right behind them, both with 1 loss each. And all those teams have still got to play one another. So it's all going to play out, but any one of those 3 teams control its own destiny. Florida, they got to play Georgia here in a couple of weeks. And then, of course, they still got to play Missouri. So, if they were to run the rest of the schedule and finish the season with 1 loss, they'd be in Atlanta and playing probably either Alabama or LSU for the SEC championship, and they've got a chance to winning that and going to the playoff. And they've got as much chance of doing that as anybody. But yeah, I mean, you look at LSU. I mean, that game in Tuscaloosa, in what 3 weeks or however long it is, that could very well be a number one versus number two matchup. Because I mean, that's where they're ranked right now. So if those teams continue to win and play like they have, that's seems like what we're headed towards.
Definitely. I don't think anybody saw us coming from LSU this year. And going back to Florida, like you said, it is in their own hands. They have a lot to take away. They have a lot in Kyle Trask. They have a lot in their running game. They have a lot in these plays that Dan Mullen developed. They just got to do a better job at having a better blanket. They got to spread the field better. They have to be comfortable and efficient. And their blanket of plays has to be thicker because they were spread way too thin. They gave up way too much by having a smaller playbook and relying on guys straight up just performing. And, coming out of the gate with Mike Vick type of athleticism to, execute plays and score points. But yeah, so that was the LSU and Florida game. I think we pretty much covered everything, in that. Got to get to some other stuff now, but that was definitely the highlight of the week. Rightfully so. It was a great game. Loved watching on Saturday night. It was one of the better games we're going to see all season. It was hype. It was really cool.
It was an excellent game. Great time slot. Getting to watch play in Tiger Stadium at night, which is one of the best atmosphere in all college football. And the game was heavily billed. Top 10 matchup between two really good teams, and it ended up owning up to its billing.
Definitely. I mean, like I said, Alabama LSU. It's going to be the highlight. So, coming out of that, we also had another type of rivalry game. Of course, this is a SEC rivalry, but this one is your biggest Big 12 rivalry and maybe the biggest rivalry in all of college football, arguably. The Red River rivalry. Oklahoma and Texas, number 6 Oklahoma versus number 11 Texas. We talked about that game a little bit last week. We kind of both predicted that Oklahoma would win that game. I was kind of wrong about my prediction. I thought Oklahoma would come out and score way more points than Texas did. I didn't think Texas would be able to stop them that much on defense like they did, but Oklahoma won the game 34-27, which means Texas was able to stop them on defense a couple times, more times than they should have been able to. And I will admit, I came on here and I've been saying all week that I did not think Texas would stop Oklahoma at all. I was wrong. I think when Oklahoma is tested now, you have the best shot at shutting them down. And I think they're perfect at number 6, and I might even rank them lower in the future because I think what we saw from here is kind of a taste of if they played somebody like Florida, I don't know how close that game would be. I think that game would be very close. Their defense their offense can be stopped by such a mediocre defense. Texas has a mediocre defense that you would see in like a bottom tier SEC team, such as I don't know, like LSU's defense kind of. It's worse than that. So, they're stoppable. They're not, completely unstoppable. So it's something you got to look at and say maybe Oklahoma isn't, the best offense in the country right now.
Well, I mean, even though we know that Texas doesn't have a great defense, they were the best defense that Oklahoma had played to this point and the most talented. And don't undersell the effects that playing in a big rivalry game can have on a team.
That is true.
Sometimes teams overall, or maybe one side ball, the other offense or defense, they can really up their level of play and maybe play over their heads a bit versus what you might have seen out of them in other games over the course of a season. I think Texas, played much better on defense than I think a lot of people were expecting. And as far as Oklahoma just winning the game by a touchdown, I just think it just shows that Texas is head and shoulders just a much better team than the other teams that Oklahoma had faced so far on their schedule. They had played a relatively, I wouldn't say a weak schedule, but they hadn't played anybody really good, anybody who could really seriously challenge them. Texas is probably the team that's going to come the closest to doing that. Oklahoma's got one or two other games on their schedule coming up. They'll be challenged, but this probably was going to be their biggest challenge of the season. And they did pretty well. They ended up playing well. Jalen Hurts did not play as good, wasn't as efficient he had been earlier in the season. Didn't play a bad game. He did have a couple of turnovers in the game. He had one pick. I believe he had one fumble as well. Didn't play badly. I know he had well over 100 yards rushing, so he did what he needed to do in leading that team to a victory. The game basically played out the way I thought it would. I didn't think it would be quite that close at the end. But I always felt all along that Oklahoma was going to win the game. So
yeah.
So we just have to see, how Oklahoma's going to come out of this game from this point. Like I said, I think it's going to be a while before they really play anybody. That's going to be a big challenge to them. And Texas, having spent so much energy and preparing and putting so much focus on winning this game and not winning it, you also have to wonder how it's going to affect them for the next few games. And because sometimes teams come out of a game like this and they seem to kind of have a hangover from the loss because they put so much focus on trying to win at one game and so much into it. Sometimes that can carry over for a week or two. So you have to watch out for that. But yeah, this was a good game. I would think overall in the games on Saturday, this was probably the second best game that was going on out there.
Yeah, I think I would agree. It was the second best game. I knew LSU Florida was going to be better, but this game was good too. It's good to see a high flying Big 12 game like this, and I think what it really came down to a lot was you see how much time Texas had with the football. They had 30 minutes. It was almost even. They had a little bit more than Oklahoma. They had 30, and Oklahoma had 29 minutes of total possession. But I think Texas was kind of able to balance that out. I think that's a reason why they were kind of so close. Texas was able to stay on that field and kind of wear down Oklahoma's defense a little bit. And at the same time, they didn't allow Oklahoma to score very quick. I mean, Oklahoma still scored pretty quickly because there's really no way you can stop an offense from scoring that quickly. But they made some stops that you normally wouldn't see watching Oklahoma this season. So I think that led them pretty close. I think, you can't just appeal the college football gods like that and uproot a team like Oklahoma with that kind of offense and that kind of leader behind center. So I think that's why you saw the score that you saw. Oklahoma just had a better game offensively everywhere around the board. Rushing, Jalen Hurts looked like Jonathan Taylor, 17 carries, 131 yards and a touchdown. And can't forget his passing yards, 16 out of 28 for 235. I mean, he did well, not as well as he's able to beat some of these cupcake teams, obviously, because it's a better defense. But he did pretty well. He did well enough to beat Texas, better than they were able to perform, really just all across the board, and that's really what got them the win. Defensively on either side wasn't very hot; it was pretty sloppy.
Yeah.
But yeah, Oklahoma, I think that's really what it came down to, and the rest of their schedule is going to be kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
but I think this game though does. I think it better solidifies Oklahoma as a college football playoff candidate because of the way, not because of the offense, but because of the way their defense played.
mm-hmm.
Their defense is head and shoulders better than what they were last year when they were one of the worst defenses in the country. Much better.
Getting to the quarterback was one thing, and also the middle. Defensive pressure.
Yeah, I mean they put a lot of good pressure on Ellinger. Got some sacks. A lot of quarterback pressures as well. And you look overall, they held Texas to just 310 yards offense, which I'm sure is by far the lowest that Texas has had this year. That's probably the only time they've even had less than 400 yards offense in the game. I know they did much better when they played LSU, but Texas was held just 310 total yards. So yeah, I mean, Oklahoma offensively did basically what they've been doing the whole season. but I think everybody kind of wondered about their defense, knowing that Texas was really good on offense, and this would be a big test for Oklahoma's defense. But I think they passed it with flying colors. They did pretty well. It'll be interesting to see if Oklahoma's defense can continue to get better. Um,
Yeah, I when you take away things from these games, when you have to find things to take away, really from this game, that's really the only thing that stands out for us to take away is the defense. Oklahoma, I mean, their D line was looking like some of the best in the country on Saturday. I mean, that D line was looking, like Auburn right now. I mean, they have guys that could get to the quarterback and stop runs through the middle. And they were just all over Ellinger, just ripping right through that O line and getting to him. So yeah, like you said, miles and miles better than their defense was last year. I think they're very eligible to get into the college football playoff and win, and get to that championship if they can keep that up. But that there needs to be an 18 playoff. I can't say it enough, but there's so many teams right now. I mean, we just talked about LSU and Florida getting into the playoff, and there's no way. I mean, those two can. I mean, Oklahoma looks good. Ohio State looks good. Alabama looks good. LSU looks good. Florida looks good. I mean, Georgia not so much now, as we're about to get into. But, yeah, it's a good win for Oklahoma. It showed a lot about their defense. So, yeah, Oklahoma fans should be pretty happy with that win. All right, so moving into another game, probably the biggest surprise of this week. South Carolina upset the mighty Georgia 20-17. That was a huge surprise, and it really came from Jake Fromm's ability to just not get the ball where he needed to be. If we go and look at the stats right here, Jake Fromm was 28 out of 51 for 295 yards. Only had one touchdown, but he had 3 interceptions. For Jake Fromm, that's absolutely terrifying. For Georgia, that's terrifying.
He had 4 turnovers actually altogether. He also lost a fumble when he was sacked. He lost a fumble as well. So, yeah, Georgia, that's the big telling stat in that game. Georgia, 4 turnovers, all attributed to Jake Fromm. No turnovers for South Carolina. Georgia, if you look at the stats, I mean, Georgia was the better team. They had, 14 more first downs in the game. They had about 170 more yards of offense. Across the board, they had better numbers. But look at 4 turnovers, and then you had their kicker who hadn't missed a kick all season. Blankenship misses 2 in this game. One was a block, and then one was just a flat-out miss.
Everything that could have went wrong for Georgia on Saturday.
And when I don't care how good you are, even when you're playing a middle of the road or an average team in the SEC, if you come out and you're not ready to play and you don't play well, you make a lot of mistakes. Anybody just about can be anybody in the SEC. So that came true on Saturday. South Carolina came in. They were 2-3. They had been struggling. They had lost a couple of games they shouldn't have. Had a couple of games where they, played fairly well. They played a fairly decent game earlier against Alabama this year, but then they had games at Missouri where they lost by 20 points. Did not look good. They had, of course, the loss to North Carolina at the beginning of the season. Did not look good. But it'll be interesting to see if this win may help maybe to propel South Carolina maybe second half of the season. Maybe if they continue to play better, maybe they have a shot maybe making the bowl game. That's still going to be tough. They still have a lot of tough games on their schedule. They've got to play Florida this coming week. I wouldn't expect South Carolina to win that one. They also, here in a few weeks, they got to play an undefeated and ranked Appalachian State team. That's on their schedule. And, of course, they got Clemson at the end of the season. And so, yeah. But, I mean, it's a good win for them. It's a win they needed. I know their quarterback Holinsky got knocked out of the game. Reports are that the injury wasn't as serious as people thought it might have been.
Yeah, I mean, he was celebrating when they missed that field goal.
So
He was
hopefully he might be able to play this week. I don't know if it's going to make that much difference. I think Florida is obviously the better team and should win that game. But yeah, I mean, good win for South Carolina, and everybody was talking about how good Georgia was and talking about how they were the best team in the SEC and they should be in the college football playoff and they'll probably be Alabama in the SEC championship game. Well,
not this
all
year.
that's kind of went by the wayside.
Yeah, so, LSU has become the new Georgia this year, I think, without a doubt. LSU has taken their spot.
Well, right now, the thing about Georgia, they're at a crossroads. I mean, is this game just a blip on the screen, just a game where they just didn't show up and didn't play good? They had one of these games last year. Actually, every year since Kirby Smart's been there, they had one of these games where, for whatever reason, they just don't play good. But then they seem to rebound and play a lot better after that. It's the same thing that happened to them last year when they lost to LSU. So it'll be interesting to see if the same thing happens this year, or did the way they play, or maybe some things exposed, or maybe this team had peaked, and will they be able to sustain the same level of play after this game that they had before? So it'll be kind of interesting to see where Georgia goes from here. I mean, they're plenty capable. They're plenty good enough to win the remaining games on their schedule, and they still have all their goals in front of them as far as trying to win the conference and make it to the playoffs and all that. But now everybody has some doubt. Is Georgia as good as everybody thought they were? Well, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is after a loss like this. When you have all these teams that are trying to get in the college football playoff, it's hard for me to see Georgia make it back in. After a loss like this, and it's a shame that this can take somebody out of the playoff. But Georgia, being at the being at the handicap that they were at already with this wide receiver group that we were talking about, they were still getting it done. They weren't struggling very hard. They really had a great rushing attack, and they had a good air attack with Jake Fromm, but I just think now it's going to be hard for them to get back in and climb back up, especially with just a ridiculous, unwarranted loss like that at home. I mean, that's something the voters are going to look at when they're looking at the poll, when they're looking at the playoff. So it just sucks for Georgia. Good win for South Carolina, moving on across their schedule, and we'll see what we see out of South Carolina from then, and hopefully Georgia's able to climb back up and get where they were, but very unlikely for a team like that to do that and make it back in. Another thing, just something that we can add. I saw also Alabama finally plays their first good slotted game, their night game this Saturday at Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa against Tennessee. At that's 9 p.m. Eastern time, I think, 8 p.m. Central. Yeah, nice. So that's a good time slot, especially for everybody on a Saturday night. Playing it at night in the new LEDs that Bryant-Denny has set up across the stadium. So everybody's excited for that in Tuscaloosa, except Jeremy Pruitt. Jeremy Pruitt, kind of has come out in front of the media and has had really no response to any of the the losses that they've taken. And we've talked about Tennessee a couple times and said that they're just going to have to find something to take away in the rest of these games and try again next year. But something interesting I saw, something that kind of got me in like a pro Jeremy Pruitt mood, was something he said earlier about Alabama when he was asked about his game plan or what he was going to do special. He was referring to a certain team in the United States, and a high school team that doesn't kick off, they don't punt, and they always go for 2-point conversions. So he said we might have to try a little bit of that against Alabama if we want to win the game. Most people thought he was joking. I think a lot of people think Jeremy Pruitt's serious, actually. I mean, it would make sense when you have a team that's almost at such a loss, and when you really know that the only way you can even stand a chance against Alabama is by keeping their defense on the field, which Texas A&M was able to do. It makes a lot of sense if Jeremy Pruitt actually comes out there and says we're not going to punt, we're not going to kick off, we're going to go for 2-point conversions. I mean, it makes a lot of sense if that's what he wants to do. I mean, he can't give any chance for them to get the ball. He's got to keep the defense on the field for as long as possible as well. So, I mean, if we saw that Saturday night, that would be pretty funny. I would say that's pretty realistic to see that. Something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, look at it from Jeremy Pruitt's perspective. I mean, what have they got to lose? I mean, they're coming to the game. They're 2-4 overall. At this point, it'll be kind of a minor miracle if they're actually able to, get 6 wins and make it to a bowl game. This is easily the highest profile game remaining on their schedule. After this, it gets a lot easier. After this, they got to South Carolina, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and those teams left on their schedule after the Alabama game. So yeah, I mean, this big rivalry game. In Tennessee, I mean, nobody's expecting Tennessee to win the game. Alabama's 36-point favorite going in. Nobody's expecting anything out of Tennessee except to get stomped. I mean, why not pull all the tricks out of the bag? Onside kicks, trying to block punts, trick plays, running flea flickers and double reverses, and
just keep them on the field as long as possible,
and do all that, and just lay all your cards on the table and just see what happens. I mean, maybe go for them 4th and shorts, regardless of where they're on the field. Try a fake punt, fake field goal. I mean, why not? I mean, this game has not been close the last several years between these teams, and let's face it, I mean, Alabama overall is just, especially on offense, they're just the superior team. So
yeah, I mean,
we'll see what kind of tricks or game plan Jeremy Pruitt puts together for this game. He doesn't really seem to be the type to just throw it all out there and do a lot of the stuff that he's proposing.
But he might try some of it. He might.
I would have to think he probably got to try something. I mean, you can't just play the conservative and play the status quo and expect to have a chance. First of all, you have to hope some breaks come your way, and then you got to hope to be able to maybe create some opportunities and maybe with some timely executed plays. So we'll see.
Yeah, if they can get all their cards right and just pull the right cards and make some big plays and get some big breaks, then they could have a chance to come out and score some points and take something away. But like you said, I think we all expect them to kind of get stomped. So but good game plan if he actually decides to come out and do that. There's no better way they could attack Alabama, I would say. So getting into some other scores real quick, we'll just really quickly, rapidly talk about, or just kind of announce just some of the scores, and then we'll head over to the NFL. Miami upset Virginia 17-9. Not too much of an upset there, but Miami did play pretty good. On the ground, they were pretty decent with 13 carries by DJ Dallas for 63 yards. Virginia played pretty decent in the air attack, 25 out of 42 for 252 yards, so they were pretty good. Miami moves on to 3-3 now after that win. We came last week and said Florida State might be able to do something to Clemson. Clemson, after that loss against UNC, or that win against UNC, that was almost a loss by like 1 point. Clemson beats Florida State, dominantly 45-14. Played like Clemson plays. Trevor threw 170 yards for 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you look at Clemson, the Clemson game. You look at the ACC as a whole from this past weekend. You have to look at all that and ask yourself, did we really learn anything from any of the games that were played? And I would say no. Everybody knew Clemson was way better than Florida State. Everybody knows that Clemson is easily the best team in the ACC. The only really good team in that conference. I mean, you take away Clemson, all you're basically left with is a whole collection of teams that are probably going to end up winning anywhere between 5 and 7 games. And then you got a handful of teams that are really bad. at the bottom of that conference. Um, Again, Trevor Lawrence played. He was good. He wasn't great. He's not putting up the kind of numbers that he did, the last half of last season. But again, he played. He played a good game. Did what he had to do. Clemson rolled. Willie Taggart. I think people were, a little bit encouraged. Florida State maybe was beginning maybe to turn a corner and play better, and they were never in this game. Clemson just basically jumped on them early and never let up. But so Clemson ranked number 2 overall in the country. Was number 3 now, but easily the best team in the ACC, and after that, it doesn't really matter because everybody else is close.
I think personally, if Clemson played one of the SEC teams, I just don't see the same Clemson I saw last year. Their offense is phenomenal. Trevor is still phenomenal. Their running game is absolutely groundbreaking. But if they played a team like LSU or Auburn, they would have a test just like they did against UNC, and I think it would be a loss for Clemson if they played somebody like LSU, Auburn, Alabama, somebody like that. Like you said, it's not even close for the ACC. Clemson's not the same team. They're number 2 now for a reason. But that was still a good win over Florida State, 45-14. All right, so moving down, Wisconsin had a very, very good win against Michigan State, number 8 Wisconsin, 38-0. They were able to shut out Michigan State completely. This offense that has known not to be, the best, but probably one of the best offenses they faced so far, and shut them out completely. Jonathan Taylor had, still a day, not as good as his past 2, but they used him in the red zone a lot. 26 carries, 80 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Even for Wisconsin in the passing game, 18 out of 21 for 180 yards and 1 touchdown. Jack Cohen can do it, in the air. Receptions, Jake Ferguson had 4 receptions for 62 yards. Michigan State just couldn't get a single point on the board, which is great for Wisconsin. So, moving on for Wisconsin, that's a good win for them.
Yeah, in Wisconsin, and I think this solidifies the fact that, I think people were still looking at Wisconsin and wondering how good they really were. They hadn't played, other than Michigan, they hadn't played anybody that was really any good. They've basically been steamrolling a lot of lesser football teams. Michigan State, I thought, at least defensively, Michigan State will match up with Wisconsin pretty well. I thought it would be a low-scoring game and closer game, and I thought Michigan State had a chance maybe even to make it a 4-quarter game. Obviously, that didn't happen. Wisconsin just took care of them, dominated the game, ended up winning easily. And so I think they're legit. And, of course, they've got some big games coming up on the schedule here in the next few weeks, so we'll find out how good they really are. I know this. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, this week they've got to play. They got to play Ohio State, I believe. So that's going to be a big test. I believe I'm correct. I'm trying to get their schedule coming here, but I can't get it to come up. But,
well, I mean, either way, Wisconsin has a day ahead of them. But with a shutout like that against Michigan State, that just proves again, the 18 playoff question. There are so many teams right now that we need to see face each other, that need to see play top talent teams. And Wisconsin, is bringing back the old ground and pound and showing that they can do it both ways. They can rely on that running game to open up lanes in the passing game, and they can do different things like that, and they can make all kinds of plays that they need to in the air, on the ground. Wisconsin just looking good, and that defense is solid. We're taking on a team like Michigan State like that. When you go into it and you look at stats just completely, forced Michigan State to have 2 turnovers, 2 interceptions thrown. That secondary for Wisconsin is looking like a dark horse. It's somebody that's coming out there and actually playing good football. Those guys are, breaking on these routes and able to shut these wide receivers down pretty easily. Able to stop, MSU's Lombardi from being 5-14 for 66 yards and a pick. That's pretty good. They left nothing for them to work with over there. So that's a good win for the Wisconsin Badgers.
Yeah.
All right. So, moving on from that, just a couple quick ones before we get into NFL news real quick. So after that, you had Boise State playing like Boise State. Hank Bachmeier, he's the man. 59-37 over Hawaii. Utah with that 52-7 win, showing that good defense again. Michigan beating Illinois 42-25, and then we just got some lower scores here and there. Nothing that we really have to cover too much. Louisville pulled an upset over number 19 Wake Forest 62-59, so barely. That's pretty much that. That's pretty much college football. We talked about the big games. We talked about everything that was huge in college football. And if you guys are watching right now, if anybody's watching, you have any more questions, go ahead and leave it down in the comments so we can answer it. We're gonna go ahead and get into NFL stuff real quick. The time we have left, we have some good stuff in the NFL though. So Thursday night football was the Patriots and the Giants. We thought that was going to be a good game. That was probably looking like the best Thursday night game so far. But it went exactly how we all thought it would in our minds, in the back of our minds. The Patriots beat the Giants 35-14. Like you see there, it wasn't close. Tom Brady did Tom Brady things, playing 31 out of 41 pass attempts, 334 yards and 1 pick. Putting it on Sony Michel for a little bit, 22 carries, 86 yards, giving it to Julian Edelman through the air for 113 yards. They had a game. They balled out. Danny Dimes couldn't score except for the second quarter. Patriots defense is playing like the Patriots defense. They're really good, the best defense in the league this year, and they're shutting people down. They were able to shut Danny Dimes down with the amount of talent they had left. No Saquon, no Wayne Gallman. Didn't have Evan Ingram, I believe, right? He was gone. So they really had, nothing to work with, Danny Dimes. So I think that's really, what we all kind of thought in the back of our minds. I know a lot of us were saying, oh, yeah, well, Danny Dimes could pull the upset. Daniel Jones is the best now. He's going to come out, for the Giants, be the new Eli. But in reality, everybody kind of felt like the Patriots had that edge, and they took it to their advantage, and they won 35-14. So for the Patriots, good win. They're moving on 6-0. So.
Yeah, the Patriots just showing that they're still the best team in the league, and they've been taking care of pretty much everyone on the schedule in convincing fashion. And Brady got off to a slow start, came on, finished strong. So offense overall, Patriots look good. Defense is really looking good. Giants were able to hit a couple plays in the second quarter and get some points, but other than that, they really made Daniel Jones look not very good, forcing turnovers, getting sacks, and
breaking news, actually, guys. Sorry to kind of interrupt you there, but this is breaking news. Jaguars cornerback Jalen Ramsey is being traded to the Los Angeles Rams for 2 first-round picks in 2020 and 2021 and a 4th-round pick in 2021, reported by Adam Schefter. That was 5 minutes ago. It's happening. The Rams now have Jalen Ramsey. We knew it was going to come soon, right before the trade deadline. It has arrived. They just traded somebody. The Rams traded Marcus Peters to the Ravens today.
To the Ravens, yeah.
So
was that to make a spot for Jalen Ramsey?
Pretty much just replace Marcus Peters with Jalen Ramsey. Rightfully so. I think if you look at Jalen Ramsey, he's a better corner than Marcus Peters. He's one of the best in the league. He's a lanky, lockdown zone corner. He can play you in man coverage. He can shut down guys like Stephon Diggs. He's done it before. All kinds of wide receivers that are fast and that run these break routes and things like that. He's able to kind of put the work on them. And for the Rams, having to play who they have to play, they have to play Atlanta next week. Jalen Ramsey's certainly going to help him if he's actually playing in that game. they got a good player there in Jalen Ramsey. They did give up a lot though, 2 first-round picks and a 4th-round pick. So that is a lot for Jalen Ramsey. Hopefully he plays like that. Hopefully he's more consistent than he was in Jacksonville. Because 2017 he was probably the best corner in the league, and now he's kind of regressed. But he is still one of the best corners in the league, as corners like Richard Sherman and Xavier Rhodes have regressed as well.
And with the trade happening with the Rams specifically, that also may be in direct response to them having to place their other starting cornerback, Aqib Talib, on injured reserve. So that trade probably happened probably for that reason. I'm not sure why they traded Marcus Peters. I mean, it's the guy who's been in the Pro Bowl. I'm not sure if he's still playing at that same level or not. Maybe. I know he was in the final year of his rookie contract. I don't know if this is the guy they didn't anticipate being able to resign at the end of the season, or if they thought maybe they would be able to possibly upgrade that position. But in any case, they do what they have to do and get one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that's just kind of the business in the NFL. You see these high flyers go to different teams, and it just happened right here while we were reporting, breaking news. So there you go. Jalen Ramsey to the Rams. Wow, that's something that I don't think we really expected him to go to the Rams. I thought we were mainly looking at the Seahawks, the Titans as a team that he said he wanted to go to, maybe even the Vikings. But the Rams, with that secondary that they already had, that's a lockdown secondary right there, and hopefully they can be as good as the Bills are right now or the Patriots with Jalen Ramsey. He's a stud. He really is. If he can just kind of play like he talks, like back it up like he did in 2017. I mean, this man's an absolute stud. He can do a lot for the Rams. Yeah. All right, so moving on, some other scores. For the Seahawks, they had a pretty good week. They beat the Browns 32-28. And Russell Wilson had a really good game. He was 23 out of 33 for 295 yards, 2 touchdowns. But they were also able to get it to Chris Carson, get the running game going again, which is something we haven't seen from Seattle, since beast mode. I mean, they got the running game going. They got 24 carries, 124 yards, and a touchdown. Russell Wilson's an MVP candidate. He's the leading right now for the MVP this year. Just the way he leads his team. That's a good win for Seattle. I don't know if you saw the Texans and Chiefs game though, but that was a big game as well. Texans beating the Chiefs 31-24. So that's a huge game because both of these offenses are crazy. The same type of offense as 2 quarterbacks that are mobile, that can throw it downfield on you, that can run right through the middle. They're bigger type guys. I mean, Deshaun Watson was 30 out of 42 for 280 yards and a touchdown. It's as good as you can get. I mean, that's really good. And Pat Mahomes was able to get it to Tyreek Hill for 5 receptions, 80 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So that's pretty good as well. Texans were able to come out of that game 31-24. And yeah, I mean, the Chiefs, if they want to get back to where they were last year, play the Patriots in that AFC Championship again, they got to find a defense. I said that last week. They got to find a defense, in the next couple weeks if they want to do it. I don't know if they need to trade for somebody or if they're just going to, keep scheming up and see what happens. But, the Texans scored a lot of points on them. I mean, I know it is Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, but still, I mean, they put a lot of points on the Chiefs.
Yeah, the Texans are a team that really everything seems to be coming together for them. Deshaun Watson got off to a bit of a slow start this year, but has been playing pretty well here the last few weeks. Their defense, Texas defense is okay. It's not great. It's not bad. They've been kind of, but they have been consistent. They haven't really had any great games or bad games. But if Deshaun Watson can play at that level and the offense can consistently perform the way they have, they're going to continue to win a lot of games. And the Chiefs, you gotta say the defense has got to get better. But offense is what drives this team, and they're going to have to. They haven't really done great the last couple of weeks, and they're going to have to score more than 24 points to win a lot of their games. They're not going to win games by defense. Defense can, can come out and and help them, but this is a team that's still going to have to depend on offense to win games for them.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, we saw it from there. That was a good game. Just like the Seahawks and the Browns, it came down to the wire really with one touchdown performance. So yeah, good on Deshaun Watson. He's balling out. I mean, him and the Chiefs, or him and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, when I grow up and am telling my kids about quarterbacks, it's gonna be like how Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady are to me right now. I mean, that's crazy. These guys are the future of the NFL. These guys are going to be the faces for the next 15 years. I mean, it's going to be absolutely crazy seeing stuff out of these guys, and even shaking hands after the game. We just saw future in the making. These guys are going to be phenomenal. The absolute face of the NFL. Moving on, we had the Tank Bowl this week, Redskins versus the Dolphins. We thought we were going to have the first scoreless tie in NFL history, but we didn't. The Redskins won 17-16 by 1 point, so it kind of went exactly as you thought. 1 point win by the Redskins. They almost didn't want to win, but I guess somebody told them they had to. Both played absolutely terrible. I really don't want to read the stats because it makes me sick, but Case Keenum was 13 out of 25, 166 yards, only 2 touchdowns for an NFL quarterback. That's amazing, right? I mean, that's just amazing for an NFL
well,
caliber.
AP had a good game though.
AP did have a great game. You're relying on the running back in a game like this. You're feeding it to him. So 22 carries for 118 yards. At his age, that's phenomenal. That's an NFL record breaker. That's a Hall of Fame guy right there in AP. And yeah, overall that game was just kind of like we thought. So yeah, moving on from that, I guess.
Well, not bad against a team that's giving up 36 points a game.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah, when you're both tanking, I mean, it's different. It is. It was going to be the Tank Bowl. Somebody had to win, I guess. Not actually. I mean, they could have both had the scoreless tie, but they figured somebody had to win. And I guess it was going to be the Redskins. I guess they agreed on that before the game. But yeah, that was a terrible game. So nobody wanted to see that really. I'm sure not even Redskins or Dolphins fans watched that whole game. Moving on, really Saints and the Jaguars. That was one of the lowest scoring games we've seen so far. I mean, 13-6. That is crazy in the NFL. Teddy Bridgewater is doing Teddy things. He's dumping it off. He's dinking and dunking. 24-36, 240 yards and 1 touchdown. And Leonard Fournette carrying the ball a little bit this week, playing some good football. 20 carries for 72 yards. Decent game there. Saints were able to get the W, making the Jags 2-4, 1-2 at home. So Gardner Minshew just couldn't get it done, I guess, this week.
Yeah, but give the Saints some credit, and their defense is really coming on and playing well, and that defense is just carrying that team right now. Teddy Bridgewater is playing okay. He's playing well enough to give him a chance to win. The Saints are just not the same offensive team without Drew Brees. Teddy Bridgewater just isn't a deep threat to throw the ball. And he looks like he's still trying to get comfortable in that offense, which you would expect, considering that until recently he had not played very much. He's been just a backup and playing very sparingly. So he is probably still trying to get comfortable and get into a rhythm with the Saints offense. But he's not beating them. He's not getting them beat. He's not making mistakes. He's not turning the ball over. And overall, seems to be making some pretty good decisions. Like I said, Saints aren't going to go out and score 30 or 40 points a game with Bridgewater at quarterback. But they have a chance to be good enough to be efficient. And if their defense continues to play that way, the Saints are still going to be a hard team to beat.
Yeah, that's an NFC Championship team. I mean, I'm almost 97% sure you're going to see this team in the NFC Championship. Playing, somebody else. Don't know who that's going to be, but they're obviously the best team in the NFC right now. I mean, 49ers are good, but I think the Saints, just looking at them, just looking at what they can do when they get Drew Brees back, I mean, they're going to put the 49ers to shame, really. I mean, maybe we could see those two in the NFC Championship. But from right now, I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of New Orleans. Obviously they're leading their division. The rest of their division, it's going like it did last year and the year before. Nobody can get it done in that division. The Panthers are getting close. The Panthers are red hot right now with Kyle Allen, but the Saints look like they lead it right now. So Ravens, getting it done. 23-17 against the Bengals. Bengals are 0-6 right now. Lamar Jackson, 21 out of 33 for 236 yards. Really good for passing stats for Lamar Jackson. And rushing led his team. 19 carries for 152 yards. That's insane. That's actually really good. Using his feet, doing the things he knows how to do, and passing for that many yards with that many completions. That's pretty good. I mean, Lamar Jackson is he's definitely a quarterback now that is solid in the NFL. That is among the best to do it right now. We have he's in the conversation with Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson right now. I mean, he's a guy that looks like all of them, so he can really do it on his feet. I know it looks like they barely scrapped by the Bengals. I don't know what their problem in the red zone was, but yeah, I guess probably the rushing game. They probably couldn't get their run game going with their running backs, Mark Ingram and such. So yeah, that makes a little bit of sense to me. But 49ers going against the Rams, 20-7, moving on to 5-0. 49ers are just good. 49ers are just going to be great this year. Nick Bosa, though. Nick Bosa has to be one of the best defensive players right now. Probably defensive rookie right now. The best defensive rookie. He's tearing it up. So is Jimmy G, though. 24 out of 33, 243 yards, 1 pick. I mean, he's kind of tearing it up. Tevin Coleman's hitting in the slots for him, too. George Kittle, I mean, he's best tight end in the league right now.
Yeah.
They got it all. The 49ers got it all right now.
Yeah, the 49ers are a solid team. Really good on defense. Been pretty efficient on offense. If they can keep Jimmy G healthy and continue to play the way they have on offense, with him just distributing the ball and controlling the ball and just and being efficient the way they have and playing defense the way they have there, they've got as good a chance of making it to the Super Bowl as anybody.
Definitely.
Right now, 49ers have the second best defense in the league as far as points allowed per game.
It's behind the Patriots.
Yeah, right behind the Patriots. Patriots have given just 48 points in 6 games so far this year, and the 49ers are second. They've only allowed 64 points through 5 games. So
maybe this is a team we can see in the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots this year.
We'll see.
Be interesting. A couple more. The Cardinals are able to pull out that win over the Falcons by 1 point after a missed field goal by Matt Bryant. Falcons are absolutely gunning it this year on offense, but their defense is it's just not. It's the second worst defense in the league. I believe that first worst is the Dolphins. I would assume it has to be. Rightfully so. They can't get anything going. They let Kyler Murray put up 34 points on them. I mean, they can't get anything going. On offense, though, Matt Ryan played one of his best games almost ever. 30 out of 36, 356 yards and 4 touchdowns. That was a great game by Matt Ryan, especially in crunch time to get that comeback. I mean, you really focus, try to get that comeback when you have all those guys like Julio, Calvin Ridley, Sanu, Austin Hooper, and Austin Hooper being the showdown, the absolute warrior of this game. 8 receptions for 117 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he's really been Matt Ryan's favorite target this year. I mean, really. The Falcons got to get it working on defense. They got to find some way to get that defense working. There's definitely going to be some coaching changes in Atlanta soon. They're 1-5 with the team that has that much talent. They shouldn't be 1-5.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn's a great guy, but he's not going to have his job for much longer. I'm sorry to say, but he just.
And it's really surprising for a guy who made his name in the NFL as a defensive coordinator, how with him having a defensive background, how their defense can be that bad. And the offense is not the Falcons' problem; it's the defense. In fact, the Falcons have actually given up more points this year than the Dolphins have. And of course, they played one more game than the Dolphins have. But still, I mean, Atlanta's given up 186 points in 6 games. So they're giving up an average of over 30 points a game.
That's actually ridiculous when you have an offense of this caliber, and they just got to get something going. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a spark with the loss of Keanu Neal with that Achilles. Obviously doesn't help. I can't remember now if it's an ACL or an Achilles. I know last year it was Achilles, but obviously it's not helping the Falcons there. So, hopefully they get it going, but Dan Quinn is not going to be the coach of the Atlanta Falcons for much longer. They're going to have to clean house. Arthur Blank knows what it takes to win. The Falcons know what it takes to win on that roster. A lot of those players know what it takes. They made it to the Super Bowl. They played the Patriots, obviously, in that 28-3 at halftime choke. They did get there, however. They played really good teams to get there. They're just going to have to buckle down, clean house a little bit and get somebody in there that knows how to win. Or knows how to win on defense, playing for defense. I know Dan Quinn's supposed to made his name like that, but he's not doing the job. Moving on to the Jets and Cowboys, that was a big game that everybody was talking about this week. Probably the most exciting kind of game because the Cowboys lost. Everybody hates the Cowboys, and the Jets were able to get that win over the Cowboys. Their first win, right? Is that what that says?
Jets' first win.
First win, 24-22. They made the Cowboys look pretty bad. Sam Darnold was 23 out of 32 for 338 yards, 2 touchdowns. Coming back from mono, maybe Sam Darnold needs to get mono more often. I mean, maybe if he just comes back,
he's going to have to miss 4 or 5 games.
I mean, if he comes back and passes for that many yards and 2 touchdowns, leads his team to a W like that, I mean, that's pretty good. Zeke, had a day, 28 carries for 105 yards and 1 touchdown, so he was obviously leading it. I think that's the reason why the Cowboys lost. They kept running the ball in hopes of getting something open in that play action and back in that secondary. They couldn't find anything. The Jets kind of kept luring people back there, and Dak just kind of kept making mistakes to not get them in the position they needed to be to hit deep plays. When they would give the ball over, and when they would make turnovers or go 3 and out, 4 and out, whatever, they gave Sam Darnold a chance to score, and he came ready to play. Robbie Anderson with 5 receptions, 125 yards, touchdown. They came to play 100%, and they got that W by playing some major football through the air too.
Well, I think it just shows you also what the Jets are capable of if they just get decent quarterback play. I mean, they've had terrible quarterback play. I mean, when you had to rely on your second and third string quarterbacks, and you're not a great team overall. Sometimes you have a great team and you put in a backup quarterback, even somebody who's not really good or has much experience. Sometimes you can work your way around that and still win games. But when you don't have a great team or even a perceived good team, you put an inexperienced quarterback in the middle of that, and it's almost impossible to beat anybody, particularly anybody that's any good in the NFL. But this just shows, with Sam Darnold, at least the Jets, they've got a realistic chance. I mean, if he can play well, and they've got a pretty decent defense. You got Le'Veon Bell back there in the backfield. I mean, good quarterback's just going to make him better because it's going to put him in a position where he's going to be able to get the ball and make some plays. Maybe the Jets have a chance to turn their season around.
They definitely do. When you look at teams that have these records, like the Falcons being 1-5, the Jets being 1-4, Chargers, Steelers both 2-4, Jags, Redskins. I mean, all these guys. I think the Jets look like the most capable of just completely doing a 360, turning the whole season around.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Jets, you look at their schedule, and it's actually kind of favorable because if you look at the schedule over the next few weeks, remember they've already played they're in the same division with the Patriots and then the Bills, but they've already played each of those teams once. So they'll play each one of those teams once more. They have not played the Dolphins yet, so they have 2 games coming up this season against the Dolphins. Actually, the Jets are going to play the Patriots. Looks like they got to play them this coming Sunday night. So, but that's a home game for them. You know, who knows how that might play. I mean, you know, the Patriots haven't had a poor game yet. You know, are they due maybe to have an off game? Jets being at home, a Sunday night game. Who knows? But after that, you look at the Jets' schedule. They're at Jacksonville. They're at Miami. They got a home game against the Giants. They're at the Redskins. You got the Raiders at home. You got at the Bengals, and then you got the Dolphins again. They got a chance here. Really, if they can play good football, they can play their way right back into the playoff race.
And that's
they've got several winnable games coming up here in the next few weeks.
That's a pretty hot take, and it's a good one, really. I mean, if we were to take a take from today and make it our take, I mean that's a good one. The Jets could definitely turn that around. Sam Darnold can stay healthy. If Le'Veon can keep staying healthy, they can get those defensive gurus back, those guys that know how to play. If guys like Quentin Williams in the middle can start making some plays and become defensive leaders, I mean they have a lot of room to progress. And Sam Darnold showed it here. He can be a good field general. He can be a guy that's gonna play great football for you. So maybe that's where that will go. Maybe they can turn around somehow and be a team that's like 9-7, 10-6. Maybe. I mean, they try their best.
I think 10-6 is possible. I think 9-7 is probably pretty realistic.
The wild card. I mean,
like I say, if they play the way they're against Cowboys, I think 9-7 is realistic. And if things go well for them, or if they even continue to improve, they could even do better than that.
I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited to see what they have in store. After the first game, I was excited after the C.J. Mosley pick.
And also too, this is a team that's been without Quentin Williams, without C.J. Mosley. They've had a couple other defensive players that they've been missing. So if they can get those guys back, this team has a lot of they have a lot to look forward to. I mean, they've got a chance to turn things around.
I definitely agree. I mean, that could be our take for today. So in the end, I think that's pretty much all we really have to talk about NFL wise. I mean, there's a couple other scores. The Packers beating the Lions 23-22 on Monday night. That was a pretty good one. But besides that, really not much to report on that game other besides crappy officiating everybody's talking about. I guess that's pretty much it for us tonight. There's not really much else to cover. I know people watching on Facebook and YouTube, you guys have been here for a little bit, and appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to what we have to say. It's been a good night. It's been a great week in football. One of the best so far, especially in college football before that against LSU. Next week, we're going to have a lot more to talk about. Alabama and Tennessee is going to be a great game for Alabama fans to see where they're lacking, see if Jamie Pruitt really does what he says he's going to do, and Florida playing South Carolina, see if they can continue that streak, try to get into a redemption mode. I guess that's going to be it, guys. And, if you have anything else to say.
No, I'm good.
All right, if that's all it for everybody out there on YouTube and Facebook. So we'll see you guys next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for episode 14 of the Football Forecast next Tuesday. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you.